Hi, this is Eric Durak for Med Health Fit, and welcome to the GLP-1 Exercise Specialist modules. We are on module number 3, which is all about the culture. And I think that one of the most important things about working in the GLP-1 space is to understand the culture. I have had a number of conversations with Bob Esqueri, my business coach, and Bob has told me that the greatest program that you could do is going to be for naught if you don't establish the culture of working with weight loss first and foremost. And I think that he's absolutely spot on. I am trying to read as much about the culture as possible. And so let's get started. So I usually start with a disclaimer that this is an education program. We're not here to help trainers prescribe medications. We're here to help them understand how to program the perfect exercise session for their individual GLP person or the group that they may be training. So if there are any issues with dosing or titration or foods, etc., this is an amazing opportunity for trainers to contact the physician or the dietitian or the nutrition coach or anyone else who is involved with the care of said person to really make sure that they're moving along the right track, because exercise is a disruptor. Exercise is going to change the physiology of this person tremendously, hopefully for the better. But we want to make sure that the trainers sort of understand that where they get stuck or where they have something that's maybe a little bit above their pay grade, that they're going to talk with somebody who can give them some information. So this is Mission Beach in Southern California back in the 1960s, and you would be hard pressed to find anyone in this photograph who's overweight. Might there be a couple? There might be, but I did not see any, and I even tried to look at some of the folks in the back. So our culture was so much different before the advent of sodas, before the advent of fast food, before the advent of processed foods, and before the advent of everyone watching television and now looking at their phones. So I want to introduce our readers of the GLP certification, which is already out, and we are really trying to continually expand it. And one of the things that I'm expanding for our second edition or the second volume of the manual is the whole aspect of culture and emotional IQ and how the trainers can really work with their clients. So we want to talk a little bit about in this program the history of weight loss, food, chemicals, and futility, which is the whole issue of processed foods and not enough of ... We want to look at some of the statistics relating to weight loss and GLP. And then the last section is how the trainers can really help. Now, we're going to get more into the weeds of strength training, nutrition, hydration, etc. But in general, from the cultural standpoint, where do trainers actually fit in to this whole aspect of working with people who are on GLP-1 medications and getting them from the initial phase to the endpoint, which is not just losing 40 pounds, 50 pounds, 100 pounds. The endpoint up here is really, did we change their lifestyle? Are we making them club members for life? Are we giving them the incentives to really continue with their exercise program, even though sometimes it's going to be very hard for them? So medicine's really been working on weight loss programs for many, many decades. They really haven't been that successful. How can trainers do a better job? Well, let's look at the culture of weight loss to make sure that we can sort of figure out where we are here. We want to understand the history, and we want to help trainers develop tools for what I consider to be a best-in-class program for weight loss. So the gentleman in the top corner is a man named John Kellogg, and the building on the right is the Battle Creek Sanitarium. Now, a sanitarium 125 years ago was akin to a destination resort today. And the Battle Creek Sanitarium was in Battle Creek, Michigan. And it was literally one of the first weight loss centers in the world. It was very, very famous. In fact, people came from all over the world to go to the Battle Creek Sanitarium because many of the problems that they had 125 years ago had to do with the fact that food was not refrigerated. And there were a lot of problems with intestinal parasites. People did a lot more. Well, they did, I don't know about a lot more, but they did cocaine and alcohol to sort of alleviate the problems. And when they made the decision to go to the Battle Creek Sanitarium, Dr. Kellogg put them on a plethora of water enemas. They did many, many days of fasting. They ate only, or what they would consider, well, mostly was organic foods back then, but they ate no meat and no meat products. He was completely a vegan. And he actually invented Kellogg's cornflakes and then later on Kellogg's Rice Krispies. So he believed that the cornflakes were something that a person could digest easy. It was not a meat-based product. It had some calories for them, but it would help alleviate some of the problems that they were experiencing in terms of these massive digestive problems. So very, very interesting. If anyone's interested in learning more about John Kellogg, there's a great book by T.C. Boyle called The Road to Wellville. I think it was published in the 90s, and it was made into a movie starring Anthony Hopkins and Matthew Broderick. And it's a very dark comedy. It's very funny, but you learn a little bit about the mindset of Dr. John Kellogg because he was involved with exercise. He had his people march around the perimeter. He had them swim in the pond behind the sanitarium, even in the wintertime. So essentially, he may have invented the cold plunge more than 100 years ago. He was involved with laughter therapy. He was involved with music therapy. He was involved with massage therapy. He did a lot of very interesting things. He was even sort of involved with what may be the first generation of pulse electromagnetic frequencies. So he was involved with a lot of very, very interesting things. And watching The Road to Wellville is a pretty good way of sort of getting the interpretation of Boyle's book from the Hollywood sector. Well, weight loss clinics and programs are still around. In Baden-Baden, we have many, many hydrotherapy spas. Saratoga Springs in New York is one of the nation's finest mineral spas. The Cooper Clinic in Dallas, Texas, has been known for decades as the medical testing and assessment type of clinic, where if you want to lose weight, you're going to do it very scientifically from the standpoint of certain foods and different types of testing, et cetera. The La Costa Resort in Mexico has many, many, many great spa services, but it's more of a relaxation in food type of spa as opposed to a medical spa. And then I was involved for a number of years with the Oaks at Ojai, California, which its sister program, the Palms in Palm Springs, were also sort of a spin-off of the old Battle Creek Sanitarium in that they use vegan foods in order to help people lose weight. So you would pay for a week, 2 weeks, a month, et cetera, at the Oaks or the Palms, and you would come out very relaxed. You probably would have lost some weight. Your waistline would be smaller. Your mindset would be better. It really was a wonderful place. And I know that the Oaks at Ojai closed during COVID. I don't know if the Palms is still open, but they were spectacular weight loss centers among many in the US and abroad. So these types of spas combine medical services such as dermal peels, Botox, microneedling, and outpatient procedures. So if you went to the Cooper Clinic or you went to other places, you may actually get some sort of what I would call outpatient medical procedures, as well as the nutrition, the diet, the spa services, et cetera. So medicine really went down the road of using drugs to control weight loss. And in the 30s, they used amphetamines, which sort of enhanced the sympathetic nervous system. And it really, they had to discontinue the drugs because of addiction. In the 60s, they used human chorionic gonadotropin, which tried to reduce food intake, but it was really not much more effective than doing nothing. In the 80s, doctors were very much into the very low calorie diets to reduce food intake. And they had a few too many cardiovascular events and deaths. So they decided to back away from having people eat less than 600 calories a day. In the 90s was when fen-phen made a big impact in the marketplace. It was very effective at having people lose weight, but it started having issues with the heart and causing excess hypertension, et cetera. So over time, that drug was pulled. In 2020, there was a drug called lorcaserin, which again, like the very low calorie diets, was trying to reduce food intake. But they had what they considered to be a certain number of people who had cancers that they could attribute or correlate very highly to the use of that drug. So here we are, we find ourselves with the GLP-1 medications. And in the course of our modules, we'll get deeper and deeper into the effectiveness of GLP-1s with patients. Medicine also had gastric bypass and sleeve gastrectomies and malabsorption surgeries and all other kinds of restrictive surgeries that would reduce the size of the stomach or reduce the size of the duodenum, or they clamp at the top of the stomach, et cetera, just to reduce the amount that you would want to eat before you felt full. People are still getting bypass surgeries for weight loss. It's still a big part of what medicine has to offer. Over 20, 25 years, I don't know how successful they are. I think that there is a significant portion of people who regain most of the weight back as their stomach sort of adapts to the restrictive processes. But the problem here isn't so much that the doctors are doing bad things. Some of their processes are successful. It's just that almost the futility of where people are at. They're being poisoned and they're being barraged with too much food from the time they're very, very young. Americans consume over 3,000 calories a day, according to the Mayo Clinic. Pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides are in thousands of foods in the US, and there are other toxic chemicals, preservatives, additives, food colorings, et cetera, that probably are endocrine disruptors and disrupt processes of the brain. They disrupt digestion, et cetera. Too much processed food. There are 197,000 fast food restaurants in the United States that generate almost $300 billion a year. And I would make an estimation that there isn't one food that's in any of these companies that would be considered a high level, high nutrient food that's going to make people better, as opposed to maybe making some of their symptoms even worse. Soda is one of the big deals. I drank sodas not very often, but once in a while when I was younger, and really don't drink sodas anymore. But in the year 2000, people drank 50 gallons per year. Now they're actually reducing the amount of sodas to 39 gallons a year back in 2013, which was 10 years ago. And I think that probably is a little bit less today because of the amount of bubbly waters and other types of foods. And even what I'm drinking here right now, which is a little electrolyte balance with my water, which is very tasty. It's got a very small amount of sucralose in it, but I drink it for the electrolytes. And then the last thing here is just low nutrient density. These foods are not packed with nutrients. They're actually pretty low in nutrients. So people are very deficient in vitamin D, which is a huge molecule in terms of keeping ourselves healthy, vitamin C and other molecules that they really should be using on a daily basis. 42% of Americans are classified as obese, another 31% are classified as overweight. That's over 70% of the US population, almost 3/4. 48% of Americans are pre-diabetic. 17% of overweight persons are taking selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs, essentially antidepressants. So in terms of the trainers helping to these people lose weight and regain some of their self-esteem and lower the depression issues naturally, they're taking an antidepressant, which is maybe compounding other medications they're taking. Stanford here, it says that the lack of exercise, not diet, may be linked to a rise in obesity. And I would agree with it, but not wholeheartedly. And then the ultra processed foods. I mean, there are a number of documentaries and shows and physicians who really talk about the correlation of high processed foods like the fast food restaurants and the amount of obesity that we have in the US versus other countries. GLP medications may be best in class for helping people lose weight. they can get them to get that initial 15% of that weight down in over 80% of the people who take this drug. Physicians and pharmacists insist that the drug may be taken for life. It's based on the step one trial, which stated that people were taking the medication for a year. They lost a certain amount of weight, but when they took them off the medication, they gained almost all of the weight back. I'm a huge fan of the word confounding and the phrase confounding variables. And in my estimation, one of the huge confounding variables is that you had people on this medication for a year, but you did nothing to help their lifestyle. Again, this is a massive, massive opportunity for the industry. Fast food, as I've mentioned, high correlation between food and obesity. But I'm also going to put a plug here for lack of exercise in schools. When I was younger, we had physical education every day, and then schools went to physical education once a week. There are many, many elementary, high schools that don't offer it at all. So the lack of PE also corresponds to higher obesity levels in younger and younger children. And international PE programs have very low levels of obesity. So we can go to other countries that have this amount of physical education. Soccer is their big thing. And the students just don't have the obesity levels that we do. And then I'm also going to say the rise of technologies like video games also have an effect on behavior, but also the time that kids could be outside playing, running, being part of a sports club, etc. So they allow for hours and hours of sitting. And of course, there is a lack of physical activity just for the time that they're doing that. About a month ago, I was at a national fitness conference, and the fitness icon Richard Simmons had passed away. Now, early in my career, I was not really a big fan of his because I thought he was just some TV guy and whatever he was doing. But when you look at the totality of someone's career, like Richard Simmons, he had such an impact on especially overweight women. They wanted to follow him. He was the Pied Piper of just get up and move, make it fun, listen to great. One of his videos was music of the oldies, and women loved to follow him. And I would entertain that any trainer who wants to be involved with GLP-1 patients should probably go to YouTube and watch a few of Richard Simmons' videos. This man had the opportunity to, because he was obese himself and was bullied as a child, and he had some issues, but he used fitness to elevate himself. And more importantly, he used fitness to elevate his tribe. And on his passing, I give him tons of credit, and I would like people to follow in his footsteps. Now, Jillian Michaels is still around, and I'm watching a lot of videos of her being interviewed on drug abuse in the United States, the role of the pharmaceutical industry in destroying health, and a lot of videos that she's talking about with GLP-1. She is an advocate of exercise, and she wants to get people to be involved with exercise at any time that they're on this medication, because she's one of these people that thinks that as you exercise more, and I'll use the word titrate, you'll reduce the amount of GLP-1 medication that you will need. We talk about that in one of our other modules. And then the only one of these trainers that I actually know in person is my friend Michael George, who started his career as a celebrity fitness weight loss trainer, and he really gained a great following. He was not like Richard Simmons. He was more of a high intensity guy, athletic guy. Let's get things going. But one of the things that I know about Michael, because I know him personally, is that he's a guy that you want to be with. You want to be friends with him. You want to be colleagues with him. You want to listen to him give a lecture. You would love to be a client of his. He had that magnetism that people would like to have. So I put these celebrity people here, not because you guys are going to make gazillions of dollars training celebrities. They all had and have a personality that people wanted to follow them. They had a high level, and with Jillian and Michael, they still have a high level of what I call emotional IQ. They understand the triggers of the people they're working with. They smooth over those triggers, and they get these people to learn to love the process of exercising and finding that new version of themselves. So I put all of these people here because they are the pioneers. And actually, Michael now has a PhD in counseling and whatever, and he's sort of off on a new path. But I knew him 25 years ago and had just the utmost respect for the work that he was done. I was working in diabetes care at the time, so we had some things in common. But I like what they're doing from the emotional standpoint. So how can trainers really help? They need to increase their healthcare literacy. They have to understand what the issues are in weight loss, what medicine is doing, the amounts of GLP, who their local physicians are, et cetera. And they need to be looking at CEU courses. This is not just about taking the GLP-1 course, although there's a lot of information about improving your literacy and your intellectual and your emotional IQ. You have to understand, well, how did healthcare get itself into this problem in the first place? And I touch on it briefly in my manual. You have to be open to other types of education, not just more fitness, more fitness, more fitness. Solving this GLP issue is not a fitness question. It's an emotional IQ question, and it needs to be looked at from, well, are there studies in my book that you should read that are psychological in nature, that are healthcare in nature? Absolutely. The more information that you can get, the better you're going to be able to deal with your GLP patients, clients over time. You have to do proper outcomes and assessments. I discussed that in depth in all other modules. And you have to understand what outcomes are. It's not just, well, so-and-so lost 10 pounds. No, it's about the body comp, the body water. It's about this emotional IQ. It's about the number of sessions they come to. How many times are they in the club? Are they interacting? Are they doing things at home? Are you following up with them? Are you writing all these things down? Are you putting all this stuff together in terms of things that you can get to your other healthcare professionals? This is where my company, MedHealth Fit, has been helpful with other companies that I've collected data for them, and we get it actually publishable. So that's a really good thing to have in terms of how your system may want to work with healthcare people. So in summary, medicine's not been that successful in weight loss because they do opt mostly for drugs and surgery. They do have some fabulous case studies, but in general, I think they've had not a great track record. Some of the first weight loss clinics actually have started over 100 years ago, like the Battle Creek Sanitarium, and international spas are still doing weight loss programs. Some of them are very, very successful. GLP-1s are very effective at getting people to lose weight. They have other issues, but I think that the trainers can affect change through their enhanced education, the assessments, the programming that they can do, but also outcomes, and last but not least, the emotional IQ that they can give to people. So in order to do a 5 or 6 question exam on this module, you can log on to the Survey Monkey here. You can go to my website, medhealthfit.com, click on the GLP-1. It'll take you right to the Survey Monkey. Or you can send an email to me and you can just ask for the final exam and I'll let you do it, exam, and just send it back to me. So my email address is directfitness@gmail, and log on to medhealthfit.com. And thank you very much for being a part of this module. And I hope that you get a big charge out of the other modules that you take during this course. So this is Eric Durack for MedHealth Fit, and I appreciate your time. I appreciate your energy. Send me an email if you've got questions or if you just want to comment on something. More than happy to engage in a conversation with you. Thank you much.